Hello everyone again, and welcome to A Shortstop with a Shortstop. Today we're going to talk a little bit about husbands and wives. One of the best movies that I have ever seen in my life is called the Lou Gehrig story. And if you haven't ever seen it, you need to try to pick it up and watch it at some point in time, because it was probably made in the 1960s or somewhere in that neighborhood. But he was married to a woman, and when Lou passed away, his wife never remarried. And they asked her why, and she said, when you've had the best, it's hard to settle for second best. And that's what she thought of her husband. She respected him. Although she had a right to remarry, she didn't want to, and that was her privilege. But the love that they had between them two in that movie is just, instead of a baseball story, the Lou Gehrig story is a love story, just to be honest with you. Relationships require tolerance. Nobody's perfect. There's going to be disappointments. There's going to be pain. Different things are going to happen. But love is recognizing that the other person has flaws and weaknesses and even doubts. We need to learn to forgive. We need to learn to communicate, because these things are important. If we're able to forgive and communicate, then we can work things out every single time. But this is how we grow together, when we forgive and when we communicate. And, you know, my wife needs to talk. I really don't need to talk, but because she needs to, I need to talk with her. I don't really need to be held, but she needs to be held. She needs to have that tenderness, that touch, letting her know that she's cared about. But a man has a responsibility to provide and protect, while she may bear children for us. He is the head of the family. She is the heart. The man provides shelter, but she gives the shelter a heartbeat. The man may provide food, but she makes the meal. A man is supposed to provide a house, but she makes it a home. He takes care of the outside world while she takes care of the inner world. He gives her love, and so does she. They don't need to compete with one another, but they need to complement one another. And in Ephesians chapter 5 and verse 25, it says, "Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her." Jesus was willing to give his life. He was willing to give everything. And husbands, we should be willing to give everything up for our wives, in protection, in shelter, and everything that they need, and show them that we love them. In Titus chapter 2 and verse 4, it says, "Wives, love your husbands." But let's go over just a few things that may be a number one killer of relationships. Sarcasm. Are you sarcastic with your mate? If you are, don't be. Are you cynical, or you have cynicism? If you do, stop it. Here's one that most men don't like. Do you roll your eyes? Are you an eye, like, ooh, baby, do you roll your eyes? That is a killer of a relationship. Name calling. Don't call each other names. Do you mock one another? That's a number one killer of relationships. Do you belittle one another? Don't belittle one another because it's a killer. Do you shame the other person, your husband or your wife? Always bringing up the past. Oh, mercy. There's a big one. That's a killer to a relationship. Comparing them to others. Don't do it. It's a killer of relationships. Interrupting them all the time. Don't interrupt your husband, and husbands, don't interrupt your wife. And I think this is a big one right here. It's ignoring one another. Not trying to see what their needs are. Just going to another room and shutting yourself down and just completely ignoring the other person. That is a killer in relationships. But some of the things that we can do in the relationship that can make it the best that it can possibly be. Husbands, date your wives. You remember the time before you got married that you dated her, you called her on the phone all the time? Compliment her. Tell her how beautiful she is. Tell her she's gorgeous. Tell her you like the dress that she's picked out. Tell her you like the way she washes the dishes, but compliment her. Tell her you appreciate what she does for you. And that will go miles for your relationship. Wives, the number one thing that your husband wants is respect. When he makes a decision, even sometimes it may be wrong. Don't tell him how wrong he is, but try to help him to get over it. But when he does make a decision, live with it. Talk with him before the decision is made and try to help him to make a wise decision, because that's your responsibility too. But give your husband respect. If you respect him, your relationship is going to go for miles and miles and miles, because he will love you even more each and every single day. The last thing that I want to talk about is divorce. And in a relationship, that word divorce should never, ever, ever, ever come up. If we look at the world today, out of every 2 marriages are now ended up in divorce. And we need to be able to teach in the Bible, from the Bible, what the Bible tells about marriage, divorce, and remarriage from a young age. And you need to know about it before you get married. And the thing that holds the whole thing together, guys, is working on a relationship through love. But husbands, here's the last, again, this will be the last thing. Be the spiritual leader at home. And that'll take care of everything. Lead prayers. Study your Bible. Have devotionals at night. And your husband-wife relationship and your kids, they will benefit from it in a tremendous way. Husbands and wives, love each other and go watch the Lou Gehrig story. Thank you again for being with a shortstop with a shortstop.